This is a vicious ruling against the Trump regime from a Republican-appointed judge, Judge Young from the District Court in Massachusetts. This case involved a threshold issue of Donald Trump trying to take away First Amendment free speech rights of people who are not American citizens while they're in the United States under the guise of an executive order. And this Reagan-appointed judge, so this goes to show you how long he's been sitting on the bench for, said that this is the most important case he's ever decided. He held a 9-day hearing or so, and he ruled that Donald Trump's conduct is absolutely unconstitutional. And the judge sent a message in this ruling as well, like lots of judges right now, getting lots of death threats and lots of threats his way. So the way the judge posted this ruling on the court's docket, it had an anonymous threat that was sent his way. And it looks like a lot of the anonymous threats that we get, although we get different variations than judges do. So in June, this judge received the following threat. Trump has pardons and tanks. What do you have? Question mark. And then the judge, Judge Young, responded. And by the way, it looks like he responded on a typewriter. It's Reagan judge. Dear Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous, alone I have nothing but my sense of duty. Together, we, the people of the United States, you and me, have our magnificent Constitution. Here's how that works in a specific case. And with that, he then posts his 100-plus page ruling right here that is meticulous and detailed and brilliant. And this is how the judge starts off. He goes, proposed by Congress in 1789 and ratified in 1791, the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, its words carved in New Hampshire granite on the exterior of this very courthouse in which the court sits, provides. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress or grievance. Then the court goes on to say on January 20th, 2025, the first day of Donald Trump's second term in office, he promulgated 26 executive orders. Executive Order 14149, entitled Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship, ostensibly issued to reverse conduct of his predecessor, barred federal officials from, quote, any conduct that would unconstitutionally abridge the free speech of any American citizen. President Trump here makes clear that in his view, the First Amendment's protection of freedom of speech applies to American citizens alone and to an unconstitutionally narrow view of citizenship at that. In this case, perhaps the most important to ever fall within the jurisdiction of this district court, squarely presents the issue whether non-citizens lawfully present here in the United States actually have the same free speech rights as the rest of us. The court answers this constitutional question unequivocally. Yes, they do. No law means no law. The First Amendment does not draw President Trump's invidious distinction, and it is not to be found in our history or our jurisprudence. No one's freedom of speech is unlimited, of course, but these limits are the same for both citizens and non-citizens alike. With this Constitution ruling firmly undergirding its approach, the court here held a full hearing and a 9-day bench trial on the issue of whether the rights of these plaintiffs to constitutional freedom of speech have been unconstitutionally chilled by the deliberate conduct of any or all of these public official defendants. The court heard 15 witnesses and admitted 250 exhibits consisting of documents, photographs, and video clips. Having carefully considered the entirety of the record, this court finds by clear and convincing evidence that the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, together with the subordinate officials and agents of each of them, deliberately and with purposeful afterthought, did so concert their actions and those of their two departments intentionally to chill the rights to freedom of speech and peacefully assemble of the non-citizen plaintiff members of the plaintiff associations. What remains after issuing this opinion is to consider what, if anything, may be done to remedy these constitutional violations. Let's bring in Harry Litman of the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast, former top federal prosecutor out of the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, and one of the top DOJ officials previously at Main Justice in Washington, D.C. Harry, you don't see orders like this that often, and from a Republican judge at that. What do you make of this?
I'm trying to think if I've ever seen an order like this, Ben. It is blistering. I mean, blistering. He goes out of his way to, well, there are two aspects to it. The first is a very harsh upbraiding of the administration for the most basic, like, who do you guys think you are? And you can really tie in his note to the heckler or death threat up top. You know, it's a constitution we're talking about. There's a certain sonorousness or gravity, and that's that one thing that really stands out of the 161-page opinion. You know, it's like he's been waiting for it all his career. He really draws a deep breath and just gives them a constitutional whacking in such a basic way. And then the other part is this this will be featured in papers tomorrow with some really, really harsh prose. And from his point of view, you can understand it's like, what is wrong with you guys? This is the First Amendment. Now, here's what they tried to say, what they presumably will now say to the First Circuit above Judge Young or the Supreme Court. So the order basically takes all these people who are non-U.S. citizens and tries to basically subject them to very tough scrutiny on the ground that they were involved in anti-Israel, pro-Gaza demonstrations. But Young says that's the First Amendment violation right there. You can't, what you've done, this order from Trump, which seems to suggest that they are second rank at best where it comes to the First Amendment. And the law is so clear and so legion and so longstanding. Everybody here has First Amendment rights. So what Young basically does is call them out call bullshit on them, on the administration, saying you're making this seem as if it's not a First Amendment issue, but it and the administration has a lot of talk in the order, etc., about they're involved with terrorism, etc. Look, if they're involved with terrorism, etc., you don't need this special order. If you need this special order, that's because you are according them second rank status for their constitutional rights, and that's just not anywhere in the Constitution. He's basically calling it a pretext. These people were there, and because they're foreign, with this order, we get a way around what would normally be their First Amendment claims. But guess what? That doesn't work. First Amendment claims are just as robust. So that was their argument, and he shoots it down and then shoots it again and shoots it again. And, this is going to be one of the 3 or 4 most strident opinions from a district court judge who is obviously, 9-day trial, has people come forward. He's just deeply offended at the administration's basic move to relegate, foreigners to lesser status when it comes to the Constitution. They'll try to say, oh, it's just things we're allowed to reach, like aiding and abetting terrorism. But as I say, you don't need this order if that's really what you're doing. So Young, Reagan judge, been, as you say, on the bench some 40 years, says, I've never seen a more important case. And he just, beats them with a 2x4 over 160 pages. It is a really memorable opinion.
Harry Litman, I want to tell everybody, I like to read the words so everybody can actually take in the thoughtfulness of what these judges are saying. It stands in stark contrast to the word salad that Donald Trump frequently vomits out there. And these are well-reasoned facts. This is why I went to law school, and I think this is what's also pulled me into the media business, because it wasn't about rooting for Democrats or rooting against Republicans. It was about kind of rooting for the facts and truly loving the analytical approach in our judicial system and having a great deal of respect for my law professors and the judges and people that I went to Georgetown Law in DC. And so to me, just seeing all of this take place just feels like a massive, a destruction of our Constitution. I was going to give some gross analogy, but I'll just pause there. Harry Litman, thank you for sometimes I have to self-censor. Harry, thank you for everything you do. Everybody subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's called Talking Feds. Subscribe now. Subscribe to his Substack, Talking Feds, and subscribe to his podcast, Talking Feds. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. You can give me a little call and tell me what word you had in mind, and talk to you soon.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.